Hello everybody, this is Diane Conrad-Lasavita for our final episode of Let's Have a Conversation. And I'm thrilled today we have Libby Post, political consultant and lobbyist with us to end out this wonderful series of conversations. So Libby, thank you for taking the time.
Oh, you're welcome. It's a nice respite given we're 2 weeks out from Election Day.
Which is, well, that actually is a wonderful segue. And so were you always involved in politics?
Yes. I mean, I grew up in a household where we were a good union household. And from an early age, my parents said we could never cross a picket line. And so when the teachers struck, we didn't go to school. And when they struck when I was a senior, I went in and told them who was scabbing, and then came back out to the teachers and the teachers union, the people that we were supporting. And my dad was a postal worker, and I walked that picket line when I was like 10 or 11. That the first time they ever struck. And so from an early age, I learned the importance of political activism and engagement. They weren't engaged that way at all, but I learned how important it was. And I did student politics and all that sort of stuff when I was a kid.
So was your mom an educator?
No, my mother was in business.
Okay.
She ran a business. We didn't own it.
Gotcha.
She ran a business on Long Island that had a number of stores and sold swimming pools and Christmas stuff in the winter. And my dad, who was a postal worker, was hurt when I was 14, and he never worked again after he got hurt at the post office.
So Long Island, what part?
Yes, Plainview, Old Bethpage.
Okay, all right.
The other thing that shaped me and who I am is that Jeff Miller, one of the 4 kids killed at Kent State, was from my town.
Oh.
And so I was in 6th grade, and that was Kennedy Week was happening, because our high school opened up in '63, and they named it for John F. Kennedy because he had just been killed. And so Kennedy Week was happening. Teddy Sorensen was coming to speak, and all the secondary school kids were allowed to go, and my 6th grade class was in the junior high school. So my parents said, just go. And so when we left, we marched through town, and I passed by my 6th grade class, and I came in the next day with a note saying I was sick. And my parents signed it, so what were they going to do, My teacher wasn't happy, but life goes on.
Yeah.
But it was a great experience to be able to be actively engaged in that. We did anti-war stuff. I was young, but we did it.
And your parents supported it?
Yes.
Which is really cool
Yes.
if you think about it, especially for the time,
Yeah.
right? In
Yeah.
Long Island.
Yes, yes.
I would assume that was pretty conservative?
Well, Plainview's right in the middle. Like, it's on the border between Nassau and Suffolk, and right in the middle, north and south. And so it was my parents moved there in '57 because it was one of the best school districts in the state. And so I was actually born on Long Island, which is rare for somebody my age. Usually you're born in Brooklyn or Queens and you move out, which my brother was born in Brooklyn and they moved out. And so it was a Republican stronghold. Nassau County was for a very, very long time. But my parents were Democrats, and we lived in a neighborhood that was mixed, and it was mixed Jewish Catholic. And so it was sort of this continuation of this melting pot that my parents grew up in, both in Brooklyn and in the Bronx and then Jamaica, Queens. So, it was this thing. So it wasn't really bad. It wasn't really right wing. That happened more on the South Shore of Long Island. That's where the Klan was active back in the day. It was on the South Shore of Long Island. Yes. John Birch Society, the Klan, that sort of stuff was the South Shore. And more in Suffolk than in Nassau County.
Wow.
Yeah, it was
I
interesting.
didn't know that.
Yeah.
So you mentioned a brother. So are there 2 of you? How many children in the family?
I have a half brother from a previous marriage from my dad, and I have a full brother.
And you're in the middle?
No, I'm the youngest.
Youngest. Baby girl. There you go.
You betcha.
So now you then did all your schooling on Long Island, correct?
Yes.
And then you get to go to college. So what did you decide?
I went to the University of Buffalo for 2 years.
Oh.
And I was there doing political science and journalism, and I also got involved with somebody in the dorms, a woman in the dorms, and we were closeted, and I knew I had to come out, and so I left. And I came here for what was going to be a 6-month internship at a group called SASU. It was the Student Association at the State University. It was the student lobby group.
Okay.
And so I came here for what was going to be a 6-month internship, and I never left. And I stayed, and I became communications director, and then I went into the private sector for a little while, learned how to typeset, and eventually my parents were like, you have to go back to school.
Okay.
And so I did. I went back to school. I finished my bachelor's and went right into graduate school and got my master's in political communications.
And you did that locally?
Yeah, all at the University of Albany.
Okay.
Yes.
Wonderful institution.
I love Albany, and I teach at Rockefeller.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yep, I teach campaigning, and I teach how to make policy understandable, or as I like to say, the state budget in 3 bullets. So I teach that. I teach once a year or so.
I would assume those are both very popular classes.
Yeah, but I do pretty good, and I get pretty good marks from the kids. So.
Oh, that's right, because you get, right, they survey at the end now.
Yeah, and they're graduate students. I was teaching undergraduate for a while, and I was like, nope, I have to teach grad students, so I moved over to Rockefeller.
So a big difference between undergrad and grad?
Yes, the biggest difference is one can write and one cannot.
So what happens between undergrad and graduate?
They learn. I mean, I was teaching public relations, and these kids couldn't write, and they'd look at me like I was nuts. And I'm like, you might think someone's going to pay you $150,000 to Twitter all day, but you know what? It's really not going to happen. You need to know how to write a press release if you're going to go into this business. Okay. And so I spent more time correcting grammar than anything else, and I was teaching Intro to Political Communications, which is what my master's is in, and I looked at my phone and I said, oh my, Trump just fired James Comey, and nobody knew who James Comey was. And I said, why are you here? Why are you taking this class, Political Communications, if you don't know who James Comey is? And that's when I decided I was done with undergraduate teaching.
In a Eureka moment.
Yeah. And so then I was able to move over to Rockefeller, which has been great.
So if you had to define political communications in a sentence or two, what would you say?
Without an expletive?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes. Please.
The fine art of BS. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's the ability to convey your message in a way that's engaging, and I focus on emotion and values, and when you put those two things together, you can be very LBJ said, capture their hearts and their minds will follow, and that's absolutely true. And so you want to grab people emotionally and then talk to them in ways that reflect their values, so that they think that you believe in the same things they do. And so, sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's not. It has to do with who you're representing or what you're representing. When I was doing a lot of work with public libraries for 15 years, and that was easier because it was the values of democracy and education and access and opportunity. When you get to a candidate, it can be a little more difficult, although, there's a set of values that we deal with, like opportunity, integrity is a big one, especially in this day and age, responsibility, those kinds of things, fiscal responsibility as well as responsibility to each other, which is an anomaly right now. Yeah. And so we put those two things together. So that's what political communications is, being able to communicate messaging to your intended audience in a way that will engage them and get them to act the way you'd like them to act. Like, I lobby for all the animal shelters in the state of New York, right? So it's puppies and kittens. So who can argue with that? It's true. Nobody can really argue with that. Yeah. We get some pushback on occasion for certain things, and there are people who are so totally out of the mainstream on animal issues, that they think they're doing the right thing when they target legislators online, and they are actually hurting the efforts to get things done.
Right.
But by and large, you know, I represent all the shelters in the state. They're doing good work. This notion that some people have that all that animal shelters do are kill animals is no longer true. Shelters are no longer euthanizing for space. That's the way it was in the 80s. It's not that way anymore. And that's why we work with, you know, different kind of fostering partners and really the good rescues that are out there, because there's a balancing act when you go into the rescue community. But, you know, by and large, legislators listen to the shelters in their area. They recognize that people love animals. I mean, this is the thing. It's a $97 billion industry, right? I have a dog, I have cats, you have, right? We all have our companion animals. They're part of our family now. We spend a lot of money, and politicians are starting to recognize how important this issue is to their re-elections. And in some communities more than in others. But it's really become one of those issues where politicians and elected officials don't want to be on the wrong side of it anymore. And so we've been effective, and I've been able to get money in the budget every year, except for the COVID year, for this thing called the Companion Animal Capital Fund, which is $5 million. So it's been 4 out of the last 5 years to help with capital projects at shelters.
Oh, nice.
You know, that we don't get any operating money from the state, and that's not going to happen. Well, it would be nice, but it's probably not. But capital money,
that's huge, though.
it's huge. And, you know, we just had Susquehanna in Cooperstown just opened up their new shelter. They got funding in the first grant cycle. They got $500,000, and it jump-started their capital campaign because it was like this stamp of approval from the state, and people were coming out of the woodwork to give them money. And they just opened up a beautiful shelter in Cooperstown. So,
I mean, people do love their animals. I know, like, if you go through the obits, you know, and who are they leaving their money to?
Mohawk Hudson Humane Society, right? Not the Senior Services Center of Colony. Sorry.
So, your point is well taken in regards to pets, I mean, and the importance of pets.
Yes, it's really, pets are great, and they add things to our lives, and so.
I bring my dog in periodically. We've got a golden retriever with the intent of being a therapy dog, and the poor little thing has failed miserably, which is okay. But I'll bring him in, and everybody's like, oh, you know, he's huge. And just people are so happy to see him. You know?
We have one too, and she's like, hi, I'll be your new best friend. I don't care who you are.
I'm going to sit down, you can just pet me.
Right, I'm going to hug you. Mine comes up and actually puts the paws around somebody's leg.
Well, see, that's the problem I had with Hooper, because he was jumping up and putting it around somebody's waist.
Well, I do this whole thing of 4 on the floor, and that keeps her down.
I'll have to bring Hooper over. You can tell him what's going on.
Yeah.
No, that's funny. So, you know, you're talking about what's important for somebody to run, and what are people picking up on? So that, you know, being ethnic, being, you know, humble, I would say, right?
Ethical, right.
Ethical.
Yeah.
Right, but somebody who doesn't carry airs about them where they're...
Well, look, we're in a time right now that is unprecedented. We had a person in the White House for 4 years that unleashed the worst, the most vile on both sides of the aisle. You know, Democrats are not, and I'm a Democrat, you know, the Democrats on the left, they're not without their own foibles, and we're starting to see some bad behavior coming out of that side of the aisle, and we know that in the Republican side of the aisle, the bad behavior is being lauded. I mean, it's being praised. Look, January 6th as a perfect example of that. And, you know, you do have your mainstream Republicans who are no longer in office talking about Trump and saying he's a pariah and a cancer on the party. But if you look at the numbers, Trump's 30% that are in the Republican Party, they're not loyal to the party, they're loyal to him. And so, you know, we have people like Trump on the local level, demagogues, autocrats, people who just want power, who are acting badly, who treat people badly, it's difficult to get good people to run because of the way the milieu and the stage has been degraded by 4 years of Donald Trump. But there are still good people who believe in public service, and they are running, and we're running on platforms of integrity and serving the community and putting faith back in government. I mean, it started with Ronald Reagan when he started in about how government is bad and blah, 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 and big government. The era of big government is over. Government's there for a purpose, and it's there to serve the people, and it's there to take care of people. Look, the Senior Services Center is government funded for the most part, and
3%.
3%, not enough, okay? So the Senior Services Center is not funded enough by government, but there are services that are funded by government. Government should be here to serve the people, to make sure those who don't fall through the cracks.
Right.
And what we continue to see is that safety net be eroded by by billionaires who don't want to pay their fair share at all.
I have a question for you. So you're saying the candidates are still out there, people still want to run. Are you ever placed in a position of convincing somebody they'd be the ideal candidate for whatever that office is?
No, because...
No, so okay, by the time you're working with them, they've already made that decision.
I work with a group of women. We formed Capital Women, which is a local PAC. And we've pumped since the 2017 cycle, we've pumped $75,000 into local elections. And we do trainings, and so we had a training this past January. It was all online over 2 weekends, I think, or something like that. And from there, people came forward to say they wanted to run, and then people then decide they want to hire me, which is fine. Gotcha. But I don't go out looking. That's the role of party chairs. Right. And I'm not. I don't think it's ethical for somebody in my position to hold a position within a party. Okay, I just don't.
Which would make sense, sure.
Right, right. I just don't think it's ethical, and so I'm not even a committee person.
I was just wondering if somebody would come to you and say, I participated in your workshop, and it was a great experience, and I'm thinking maybe kind of sort of I'd be interested in entering political office.
Yeah, I have those conversations.
Okay, I'm just wondering.
Sure.
Think about it. If somebody's not in the political realm, that's a huge leap of faith.
It is.
I mean, and depending upon what the race is, they can get torn apart.
Yes.
And things that they're thinking, oh, that's not a big deal. All of a sudden, maybe that traffic ticket 10 years ago was a huge
that's right.
deal.
And I mean, we see that play out every day. And sometimes people come and talk to me about their intention to run. And I'm like, okay, well, this is what it is. And if you're not willing to ask people for money, don't run. It's just that simple. I mean, and they all say, oh, yeah. And then they got to pay the bills.
Right.
And it's, you got to pay the bills. So, and so sometimes people end up self-funding, which, okay, but you got to pay the bills. I mean, that's the bottom line.
Right.
This is
and
how I make a living.
How long have you been helping candidates?
I started helping candidates in 1989 when we changed the face of the Albany Common Council in order to get the Human Rights Ordinance passed here in Albany. Okay. To ban discrimination in employment, housing, and accommodation based on sexual orientation. Okay. And so we were successful in that. We did, when we did change the face of the city council, we got good people elected, and the bill got passed, and you can come into my office and take a picture of the bill signing with Tom Whalen and Nancy Burton.
That's a blast from the past.
Right,
oh
Susan Russell, Carol Reichert, and Keith St. John.
Okay.
And Joe Lynn, who was the Common Council president at the time. I mean, it was really, it was really something. We really did something that people didn't expect us to be able to do. But we had a political strategy, and a fellow by the name of Jim Perry, who was my political soulmate. for a number of years. He headed up the Eleanor Roosevelt Democratic Club, and they got this done, and I worked with them, and it made a difference. And then when Sonda passed on the state level, I worked with Hawk Stone, who's a transgender activist out of Schenectady, and we got the city council in Albany to change and to pass a gender-type bill for gender expression. So, you know, things did happen. So that's when I started. It was 1989. It's when we did that first thing. And actually, I mean, Helen DeFasis.
Oh, yeah.
Right, she ran for school board in like 85, and I did her campaign, and that was when you couldn't like go door to door in a ward without the ward leader saying it was okay. And I was like, are you kidding me? I mean, come on.
The blessing of the ward leader.
Yeah, and so they say you can go do whatever you want in the 6th ward. So, all right, fine. The 6th ward's downtown, that's where all the gays were living, okay, fine. We won the 6th ward and lost the rest of the city because we were able to do what we needed to do in the 6th.
Right.
And then she eventually won in 97 she became city council president and got reelected.
So that was a long time, though,
2001.
that she was trying to get into political
Oh,
office.
yeah.
Wow. Now, are you involved with the Eleanor Roosevelt group?
A little bit,
Okay.
back in the day, you know, a little bit. Sheila Healy was much more involved, and Sheila and I do have this political consulting firm together and do lobbying together. But she was more involved than I was. What happened was, in 1987, I think it was, or 88, I can't remember, I was asked to become the co-chair of the New York State Lesbian and Gay Lobby. And Jim Perry became the lobbyist. And that eventually merged with another group out of New York City called Fair PAC, which was Friends and Advocates of Individual Rights Political Action Committee, which was formed to change the face of the city council in New York City to get their bill passed. And when we merged, that was the Empire State Pride Agenda. That's how that started, the first iteration of the Pride Agenda, which was around for 25 years. And I was one of the founding co-chairs of that organization, and I spent 5 years doing that, and we got the organization going, and then it went through its life cycle. That's all I'm going to say about that. So.
Well, you know, it still sounds like you get excited about politics.
Oh yeah,
though, and
sure.
Advocating. And
Yeah. I mean, why not? It's, you know, I like it. It's fun. I mean, right now, I mean, I can't wait until November 2nd at this point.
November 3rd, probably.
Yeah, November 3rd, actually the 4th, we're going to go away. But, you know, it's fun. I really enjoy it. It's a challenge. How to put together the puzzle pieces for a winning campaign. It's, you know, it's fun, and I think I'll have some successes this cycle. You know, you can't win every single one, but it would be nice to win a couple.
So, just a guesstimation, you're working with 20 candidates?
Yeah, about that.
How do you keep track?
It's not easy, but I have a big spreadsheet, and I do different things for different people. I do mail for all of them.
Okay.
And some of them I do social media work. Some of them, the retained clients, I'll do video work, you know, like really simple videos, nothing monumentally fancy. And then some people I just do mail for, like a one-off or two-off piece, and that's that. So.
Do you find mail effective? And the only reason I ask is this time of year I'll go home and you know, they'll send one to both me and my husband, so I'm getting two of the same thing.
Right. That's because whoever is doing the mail didn't household the list. I household the lists. It's a lot cheaper that way. It's less postage.
Yeah.
Because half the cost of direct mail is postage.
Okay.
Okay, so especially when it gets to be bigger mailing list. But yeah, no, mail is effective. I can tell you that in a couple of the races that I'm doing now, the intro pieces hit 2 weeks ago or a week ago. And when my candidates go to the door, they're like, oh yeah, I got your mail.
Yeah.
I got your piece, and I can show you those pieces. And, you know, they're not your typical vote for me kind of thing. They tell a story, and I believe that you can tell a story in doing this so that you can really get people's information out there in a way that is engaging.
Right.
So
I
that's what you have to
assume
do.
like photo placement, because people tend to be lazy readers. They do.
Right.
And people gravitate towards
Right.
some type of
Right.
graphic.
Graphics, headlines,
Yeah.
vote for me. And don't forget to vote.
And don't
Yes.
forget to vote, which is really
Right.
probably the most
Right.
important piece
And
of
now,
all of this.
and now you've got early voting in New York.
Yeah.
And so you know, the balancing act, early voting starts on the 23rd. And so this balancing act of pieces that go out, every piece I do now says when the vote is and when early voting starts. And some of them have QR codes that I create in order for people to go to, it goes right to the Board of Elections so that they can, their Board of Elections, so that they can see what the early voting schedule is in their town.
Smart.
You know,
Smart.
for those who want to early vote, I vote on election day.
Do you? Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know what? I like the early voting, especially when we're working with seniors. You know,
Yeah,
that gives
it's
them a lot
great.
of opportunity.
And it's better than absentee ballot, although, I mean, it's not better than. It keeps them engaged to be able to go into a place to vote. Absentee ballot voting is very, very important. What you need to make sure is that they're not absconded with.
Right.
Not what Trump was talking about.
Right.
But, you know, there's an absentee ballot strategy. Some of them could get picked up, who they get picked up by,
Right.
whether or not the person actually fills them out or not, or just, I mean, back in the day, they'd go up.
$5.
Right. Back in the day, they'd go up to the nursing homes in Albany, and, you know, it would all be filled out. Here, just sign your name on the back of the envelope, or we've taken care of it for you. And they'd steal elections that way. But, you know, and that sort of, those kind of shenanigans still happen, so we have to be careful
Right.
with
Sure,
the
of
absentee
course.
ballots with
Gets back to
seniors.
that ethical thing we were just talking about.
Right.
Now, I'm going to jump here and I'm going to ask you about the roundtable. So you're on WAMC roundtable. How long have you been on it? How often are you on there?
I'm on every week on Mondays, and when they need me, I'll go on another day. It used to be Mondays and Tuesdays, but then with COVID and everything, and their desire to broaden the demographic of the people that's on, and that's fine with me. So I'm on every Monday, and I was on this morning, and you know, it's fun, and I've known Alan. Alan was my professor in graduate school, so I've known him since 1982.
So they say small money on that.
Yeah, oh yeah, and small Berkshires too, because that's where he's from. But I've been doing it since marriage equality passed, because I was on to talk about marriage equality, and that's when they said, would you like to do this on a regular basis? And I said, sure. Because before then I was doing commentary on a weekly basis, which was, it's a lot to write an op-ed piece every week and then go record it. But I was doing that, and so I think it's been since like 2012 that I've been on the roundtable, and it's fun. I mean, I have a good time. It really is the fine art of political punditry.
Right.
You know, I'm pretty good at not making things up, but I'm pretty good at punting, let me put it to you that way, where I can come up with stuff to talk about an issue that I don't really know a lot about.
Yeah.
So
Great show, great show.
Thanks.
So Libby, do you mind sharing about your personal life?
Sure. My partner, Lynn Dunning-Vaughan, and I have been together since 1995. When we got together, she had a son, Alex, who was 9 going on 10. I never wanted kids, so it was a little bit of an adjustment. But you know, we function as a family with his dad. When his dad got remarried, it was at our house. You know, there was at one point when we were all at an event, and Alex saw somebody from his school, and he said, and this is my mom, and this is my mom, and this is my mom. It was really very, very funny. So, and he grew up thinking that all families were like this, which is a wonderful way to grow up. But we've been together since 95, and you know, been through the trials and tribulations that any couple has. We got married after marriage equality passed in New York in actually October 14th, 2012 is when we got married, and it was the end of a 17-year engagement.
Wow.
And you know, we're no different than anybody else, no different than any other couple. I mean, and people just need to get over it.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we're a loving family. We raised a son. with his dad. We did him right. He's going to be 36.
Wow.
You know, he's an organic farmer. He does well.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. He's an organic farmer.
Is he local?
He's in Wappingers Falls.
Okay. Well,
He was in the Pioneer Valley. But we sent him to AmeriCorps when he was 19, and he got public service on the brain. And, you know, he really likes this. He went to Green Mountain College, which is in Pulteney. It doesn't exist anymore, but it's like a postage stamp of a college with 700 kids. But it was all about sustainability. And, you know, he's doing really well. And Lynn is, you know, the president of Shaker Heritage Society now, making some change there, moving things along. And, you know, we have a nice life. And it's great. I never expected to not live like a student. Let me put it to you that way for the rest of my life. But Lynn is an interior designer, so when my mom died, left me money, we bought this house on the hill in Manans.
Yeah, I've been to your house.
Right, for those who know where that is.
Yeah.
You know, we have the gatehouse to one of the old estates. Yeah. And it's beautiful, and you know, it's great, it's bucolic, and it's 5 minutes from any highway. I mean, that's the other thing. It's really centrally located, but quiet. Yeah. So.
No, it's a beautiful home, and I have to second everything you said about Lynn. I mean, she's just absolutely wonderful. I've known her for a while, you know, and as the president of Shaker Heritage, she's doing a great job.
Thank you.
And you know, I've known you for quite a while, and actually at my last job, I used to pester Libby all the time, because we would have these groups of delegations come in, and they would want to talk about gay and lesbian rights.
Right.
Do you remember that one group, I'm just going to diverse really quick, from Romania, and they actually would do exorcisms of individuals who came out of the closet. I don't know if you remember that or not.
God.
Just like, you know, how far the United States has come as compared to other countries.
Yeah. I mean, I remember we brought a bunch down to the Capitol and with John McDonald, and they were in the chamber. That was fun. Yeah. You know, and those were great. That was great work.
That was fun.
That was fun.
And it's humbling.
Yeah. I mean, you know, to be able to see where other people are coming from, but it was great to be able to bring those folks in and show them what democracy
hopefully
looks
we'll
like.
be able to do it again.
Yes, one would hope.
At some point.
Right.
But I want to thank you for everything you do in the community, and that's true with both you and Lynn.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
If a young person was thinking about going into lobbying or political commentary or, you know, assisting candidates, what advice would you give that person?
Well, get involved in if you want to do campaign work, get involved in campaigns. Learn how they work. Okay, you can't just say, oh, I'm going to read this book and then boom, I'm going to be an expert. Because as I told Helen DeFasas, who was my professor, what you teach is nothing compared to real life. Yeah. And she's like, oh, no. And I'm like, oh, yes. And by the time we were done, she was like, you were right. I'm like, yeah, I know I'm right, because this is the reality. You're dealing with personalities and people and blah, 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 you know, and things happen. Things happen that are beyond your control, and you have to learn to roll with it. So I would suggest people get involved in campaigns, get involved with Young Democrats, get involved with, you know, advocacy organizations. You know, there's a difference between electoral politics and policy advocacy. Some people I can bridge both, some people can't. But it's still, you get to see how the sausage is made. And when you work in the assembly or you work in the Senate, you know, you get the opportunity also to work on campaigns as well. So there's both of that. And the best advice that I can give somebody is to listen to people who have done it, and recognize that there's value in somebody who's 63 and who's been doing this for 40 years and has some experience. And I think that the instant fame of today with influencers and all the rest of that stuff, people think they've got it down when they're 22, and I'm sorry, but that's not the case. And, you know, I might be ageist, I don't know, I don't really care, but, you know, I think you have to, you need the experience, and it's all about experience, so.
Give credit where credit's due.
Yeah, but not only that, but just get the experience that you need to be able to do it.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, it took me a long time not to question myself. And as a woman, I think that, you know, we're socialized to constantly question the decisions we make. And so it took me a long time to stop doing that. So.
Well, good for you for being able to stop.
Oh yeah,
Most of
now
us
I'm
still
like,
do.
I know, but I'm like, yeah, no, this is what you got to do. This is the right way to do it, and that's that.
Very cool. Well, Libby, on behalf of Colony Senior Service Centers, our staff, board of directors, thank you for ending this series of Let's Have a Conversation. It was
Well,
great.
thank you. I appreciate you coming in, and hopefully this turns out to be what you want.
Thanks.
Okay.